7. Reading and Writing.
Reading and writing is a pretty overlooked Zarathustra discourse. It only rarely gets quoted. But actually, this is a pivotal discourse, in which several important ideas are introduced. It begins, innocently enough, with a mundane discussion about reading and writing, but then transcends into an entirely different realm.
Of all that is written, I love only what a person hath written with his blood. Write with blood, and thou wilt find that blood is spirit. It is no easy task to understand unfamiliar blood. I hate the reading idlers.
The idea here is very understandable to anyone who ever tried to write, or to create art of any sort. You can write the thoughts that are in your head, and that's pretty easy. Or you can try to put into words something that is not clearly defined in your head, a certain idea or sensibility that is plaguing your thoughts. Trying to articulate it is a painful process, and this is why Zarathustra calls it writing in blood. But you then find out that it is also a rewarding feeling, which uplifts your spirit. Blood is spirit, says Zarathustra. The spirit is made stronger through the pain, through shedding your own blood while trying to give expression to your inner powers. The reader, similarly, is required to put an effort. What he calls the reading idlers are those who don't try to understand the meaning behind the words. If a writer writes in blood, it means that they express an idea that was not put into words before. The reader has to engage with those words, try to extract this new idea. It, too, is a painful yet rewarding process. But the idle reader makes no such effort. They just misinterpret the words by falling back on their own thought patterns.
He who knoweth the reader doeth nothing more for the reader. Another century of readers, and spirit itself will stink. Everyone being allowed to learn to read ruineth in the long run not only writing but also thinking. Once spirit was God, then it became man, and now it even becometh populace.
The late 19th century was when Europe moved to eliminate illiteracy, believing this would bring advancement to the human spirit. But, says Zarathustra, the unintended consequence was that it created a mass of idle readers. This has a negative effect on the writers, who don't want to make an effort for such readers. Thus, they are no longer eager to write in blood. In the long run, he warns, this will corrupt the spirit. Rather than advancing and uplifting the human spirit, then, liberal society has turned it into rabble.
He that writeth in blood and Proverbs doth not want to be read, but learnt by heart. In the mountains the shortest way is from peak to peak, but for that route thou must have long legs. Proverbs should be peaks, and those spoken to should be big and tall.
Suddenly, there is a shift. The ideal writers don't just write in blood, but also in proverb. What does he mean by that? This goes back a little. German Enlightenment thinkers, like Leibniz or Kant, would write in a very organized way, developing their ideas in a rational and orderly manner. The idea was that human reason can encompass reality and explain it, and this is what they were trying to do. But in the 1790s, a group of young German writers rebelled against this rationalist approach. They claimed that the truth cannot be reached through a process of development of ideas, but can only be glimpsed as a whole. Thus, they wrote in fragments that tried to give us glimpses of the truth. This was the beginning of the Romantic movement, which dominated the German spirit in the 19th century. Young Nietzsche was a romantic, but then rebelled against the movement. We see here that he still believes one should write in fragments, or proverbs as Zarathustra calls them, but his reasoning is different from the Romantics. He doesn't believe they capture the truth, but that they represent something that is pure. When you develop your ideas in a linear way, like the Enlightenment thinkers, you are required to do a lot of writing in a business-like manner to prepare the ground for the actual idea. Thus, only part of the writing is in blood. But with a proverb, it is just the idea, dressed up in a creative manner. They are written purely in blood. Thus, the proverbs represent peaks of spirit, rising above everyday writing or speech. Writing in proverbs is like moving from peak to peak, and when you constantly write in proverbs, constantly write purely in blood, your spirit grows and grows, and develops the height and long legs that are required to move from one mountaintop to the next in one step. The same goes for the reader. If they engage with the Proverbs and manage to break through and extract the ideas behind them, their spirit becomes taller. They don't just idly read them, but learn them by heart, internalize them and make them part of their bloodstream. Thus, by writing in Proverbs that only a select few can understand, the writer knows that he is read by people who are worthy of his writings. We are beginning to realize that this discourse dramatizes its content. Zarathustra jumps from one idea to the next, writing in Proverbs. He did it in previous discourses as well, but the progress was more linear. Here, we are just jumping from peak to peak. Let's move on to the next idea.
The atmosphere rare and pure, danger near and the spirit full of a joyful wickedness. Thus are things well matched. I want to have goblins about me, for I am courageous. The courage which scareth away ghosts createth for itself goblins. It wanteth to laugh.
Now Zarathustra presents the idea that an exalted spirit, a spirit that was thus uplifted, is filled with merriment thereby, and wants to laugh. After casting away the ghosts, like it did in previous discourses when it dealt with existing ways of thinking, it finds itself in the company of goblins. That is, ideas that are dangerous, wicked, and full of subversive mischief. Such ideas fill the spirit with mirth.
I no longer feel in common with you. The very cloud which I see beneath me, the blackness and heaviness at which I laugh, this is your thundercloud. Ye look aloft when ye long for exaltation, and I look downward, because I am exalted. Who among you can at the same time laugh and be exalted?
In this uplifted state, his spirit laughing at the ideas that once brought it misery, he looks down at the people who are still plagued by these ideas. They look upwards, hoping for moments of exaltation, whereas he is constantly living in that exalted state. But he is quite lonely at the top, as humanity is still held down by those gloomy ideas. He calls on us to join him.
He who climbeth on the highest mountains laugheth at all tragic plays and tragic realities. Courageous, unconcerned, scornful, coercive, so wisdom wisheth us. She is a woman, and ever loveth only a warrior.
Most thinkers of the past portrayed human life as tragic in nature. This is why tragedies, in art, were always held in the highest regard, higher than comedies. But this tragic sensibility, says Zarathustra, is merely the result of their bad ideas. Once you liberate yourself of these ideas, once you create the ideas and proverbs that uplift you to the realms of laughter, the tragic also seems laughable to you. And here is also where you gain wisdom. Wisdom, says Zarathustra, is like a woman who is attracted to warriors. By slaying the old ghost-like ideas, and instead battling with ideas that are like goblins, you become a warrior of the spirit, and wisdom comes to you.
Ye tell me, life is hard to bear, but for what purpose should ye have your pride in the morning and your resignation in the evening? Life is hard to bear, but do not affect to be so delicate. We are all of us fine sumpter asses and assesses. What have we in common with the rosebud, which trembleth because a drop of dew hath formed upon it?
Zarathustra agrees with the common saying that life is hard to bear. What he rejects is the idea that this should be the end of it. People accept that life is a burden, and are proud that they are able to shoulder it. But this is nothing to be proud of. Humans are not as delicate as a rosebud, but as resilient as donkeys. We are capable of carrying this burden, and we should not turn that into the virtue that we are proud of. We should rather find the ideas that transform the pain into exaltation.
It is true we love life, not because we are wont to live, but because we are wont to love. There is always some madness in love, but there is always also some method in madness.
In the 19th century, it was common to believe that humans are driven by the will to live. Nietzsche rejected this notion, and here he puts it in the mouth of Zarathustra. Somewhat differently from Nietzsche, whose philosophical writings are not prone to sentimental talk, Zarathustra claims that we are actually driven by the will to love. He adds that there is madness in love, but he finds rationality in this madness. Plato was another thinker who claimed that there is madness in love, and that this madness helps us transcend to the realm of the ideal. It seems that Zarathustra is saying something similar, that our need for love can push us to the heights that he wants us to aspire to.
And to me also, who appreciate life, the butterflies and soap bubbles and whatever is like them amongst us seem most to enjoy happiness. To see these light, foolish, pretty, lively little sprites flit about, that moveth Zarathustra to tears and songs. I should only believe in a God that would know how to dance.
We are beginning to put it all together. When you write purely in blood, it comes out in the form of short proverbs. This makes you feel that you are moving from peak to peak, transcending above everything that is mundane and dreary. It produces a feeling of mirth, of lightness in the body. Those who feel this way are enjoying their existence, flitting in it like butterflies or sprites, dancing their way from peak to peak. Zarathustra, the atheist and God-killer, says that he will believe only in a God that can dance, a God that is the manifestation of this exalted feeling. The implication is that dancing is the expression of the highest form of existence.
And when I saw my devil, I found him serious, thorough, profound, solemn. He was the spirit of gravity. Through him all things fall. Not by wrath, but by laughter do we slay. Come, let us slay the spirit of gravity.
Here, for the first time, Zarathustra introduces his enemy, the villain of the book, the foe that he will have to face. That villain is the spirit of gravity, that wishes to drag him down and deny him this transcendence into the realms of joy. The spirit of gravity dominates contemporary culture, and so it values solemnity over laughter, tragedy over comedy, long essays over proverbs, and meditative music over dance music. To liberate humanity, he will have to slay this villain.
I learned to walk. Since then have I let myself run. I learned to fly. Since then I do not need pushing in order to move from a spot. Now am I light. Now do I fly. Now do I see myself under myself. Now there danceth a God in me. Thus spake Zarathustra.
Zarathustra feels that he managed to break away from the shackles put on him by the spirit of gravity. His body no longer needs a reason to move, but is driven to move, to float in the air and dance from one mountaintop to the next. Thus, he has become one with God, the true God, the God of dance. Now, can he teach us to do the same? Well, from here on, his discourses will have that lighter quality of jumping from one idea to the next. Can we, the readers, keep up with him?